When his breath began coming more easily, he pulled himself up and over the railing, tumbling in a heap on the boarded sidewalk. The stability of the bridge, its firmness beneath him, was a wonderful thing, and it revived him more than anything else. He smiled briefly. What a story he'd have to tell Mother tonight. Then he remembered the old man, woman, and baby on the roof, and he sat upright. Upstream, he could see a great deal of floating debris, but nothing indicating life. To the south, toward downtown, the water was rushing madly down Main Street and appeared to be about a foot deep already at 3rd and Main, the city's principal intersection and dividing point for east and west, north and south. In the distance, he could see people wading through it, horses pulling wagons crowded with people. Even as he watched, most of these people were disappearing into buildings toward safety. To the north, the water was even deeper, rushing toward him down Main Street to the foot of the bridge, and then turning west to race down Lehman Street toward McKinley Park, making his bridge a veritable island in the raging waters. Many of the windows in the Bellevue apartments at the northeast edge of the bridge were filled with spectators watching this great drama unfold. Faintly, he heard a scream and looked upstream. The first thing he saw was a horse only a dozen yards away, its eyes bulging in terror as it hurtled toward the bridge and struggling frantically to keep its head above water. The scream came again, a little louder now, and he saw the little house floating toward him. At first, he was not sure it was the same one he'd seen from the levee, because only the woman and child were there, she clinging tightly to the roof with one hand and just as desperately to the babe with the other. They were just a little to the north of midstream, and he ran along the bridge, reaching the spot where they would pass with plenty of time to spare. Carefully, he climbed over the railing and lowered himself to the outside abutment. The house was almost certain to strike the pillar, and the rescue would have to be timed perfectly. Straddling the top of the abutment, he gripped it tightly with his heels as if he were riding a horse. The woman saw him and rose from her sitting position to a crouch. The house rode low in the water, the roof just slightly sloped, and no more than a foot above the surface he could hear the baby squalling. Come as come as close as you can toward this edge of the roof, Blackburn hollered. Hang on until just before you reach me. When I yell, now, stand up straight and raise your free arm. Can you do it? Yes, she called back, and he was amazed at her calmness. She scrambled to the leading edge of the roof and crouched there. They were only 30 feet apart, and the distance closed quickly. Now! Instantly, she stood erect, swayed a little, and regained her balance. Holding the lower rail of the bridge with his left hand, Blackburn bent, scooped, and felt his arm encircle her waist from the front. Her upraised arm came down across his nose and eyes, gripping tightly. Although he couldn't see, he heard the hideous grinding crash as the house struck the abutment and broke into many pieces. His left arm felt as if it would pull from its socket as he slowly pulled himself upright. Grab the rail, he ordered, still unable to see. Hang tight until I can lift you higher. Her He felt her arm leave his head and some of her weight ease off as she clasped the rail. He relinquished his own hold on it and put his left arm around her, lifted her up until her knees found a purchase on the pillar top. Then they stood up together, he with one arm still about her waist holding her. The baby continued to wail. From the direction of the Bellevue apartments, he heard cheering. He helped her over the rail to safety and then followed her. Downstream, he could see large chunks of the house turning over and swirling in the current as they were whirled off. He turned to the girl. Where's the old... Where's... My father? She asked quietly. He slid into the water when the house broke loose. I don't think he didn't come up. Deeply sorry for her, Blackburn led the girl to the north end of the bridge. The water between there and the entrance to the Bellevue was under only a couple of feet of water, and there was little current there. He carried them to the door, opened it, and gently placed her on the stairs. When he turned to go out again, she stopped him. Wait, I want to thank you. When we saw you get the boat and tried to help us, my father said you were a very brave man. You are. Thank you. Blackburn grinned. For the first time in his 35 years, he felt that he'd really done something worthwhile. He felt big and strong and important. It was a good feeling, and he waved as he waded out the door. Somewhat light-headed and feeling foolishly invincible, he returned to the middle of the bridge and saw that only an occasional person or horse was visible on Main Street downtown. The water was already well over the wagon hubs, and some of the lighter ones had turned over and were bumping along to the south. He looked up the river and saw no other marooned people, but there was a beautiful collie coming his way in the bed of a floating wagon. The dog was soaking wet and cringed pitifully against the side of the wagon, its feet wide spread to maintain balance. It was wearing a collar, and Blackbird felt sure he could snatch the collar and swing the dog up onto the bridge. The current would bring the wagon to almost the exact center of the bridge, and he'd have to lean far to grab the dog. Once more he located the correct position and climbed the rail. There was no pillar here, and he had to crouch on the narrow rim. He squatted with one hand on the lower rung of the railing and the other poised to grab. As the wagon swept below him, he dipped and his fingers slid under the dog's collar and clamped shut. As the weight of the animal slid off the wagon and pulled him down even more, a flash of gold caught his eye, and he saw his watch pop from his vest pocket and begin falling slowly because it was dragging the chain out of his pocket behind it. His beautiful watch, his graduation gift, the watch he'd lived by, eaten by, worked by for 17 years. Instinctively, without conscious volition, his left hand released the rail and snatched for the watch. He fell. The bitterly cold water swept him under, and though he lost his hold on the dog, he managed to catch the watch, and he gripped the timepiece firmly in his fist. He had not taken a deep breath, and he fought to reach the surface. He felt something bump his back. It was the dog, and it braced its legs against his shoulders and shoved him down as it tried to reach the surface. A smothering blackness closed over Samuel Blackburn, and he thought of the words on the watch. Time is the enemy only of those who are enemies of time. His struggles ceased, and he relaxed, and the fine gold watch slipped from his fingers, and he was gone. Time had run out for Samuel Blackburn.